Joe, hello, it's me on our YouTube channel, apparently. That's right, we're bringing it back, starting now, surprise video. Here we go. In the spirit of surprises, this being a video I did not tell you about, I thought that's what this week's video could be about. So here, in no particular order, is my top 5 surprise historical events throughout history, obviously. If it sounds like I'm going quick and I don't know how to introduce this, that's true because we've not made one of these videos for like 2 years. I'm reading from a script, which I don't normally do, and you find me in full quarantine mode. So I do not have a working laptop currently or any software to edit on, and so for that reason, I'll be attempting to do this in a one-take upload rather than a polished, edited video. Such is life in 2020, right? So some quick ground rules. I tried to pick events that were surprising in their own historical context. That is to say, there were actual surprises to the people who witnessed them, rather than being like planned and executed with a wide degree of publicity, say like, for example, the moon landing. So without much further ado, here we go. So my first one was the Trojan horse. I think you'll agree with me, a fairly surprising event. Were you in the city of Troy and this happened? There's a number of historical authors who mention it. The most widely known being Virgil and Homer. Homer's being the earliest in the 8th century BCE, and that is in the Odyssey. Ancient depictions, however, tend to be much older than the literary sources. The oldest is from a bronze fibula, which is a type of brooch dated around 700 BCE, so that's nearly 3,000 years ago. So it's pretty cool from a historical standpoint of like I was trying to do my research and actually find not just the, tales, but like how do we think of these things as real historical events. Most accounts relate that the horse was left as a tribute to Athena, whose Trojan temple the Greeks had previously sacked. And Virgil has one character, Sinon, boast to the Trojans that the horse was actually built to be too large to fit through the gates of Troy. Classic, right? And then of course the Greeks jump out, they kill all the Trojans. It's fairly bad if you're a Trojan, but a big surprise, I'm sure. We're going to move on. Oh, there's some really interesting things. I'm just going to have to do a video on this later also because it's really good. Our second historical surprise was the execution of Oliver Cromwell 2.5 years following his death. So this is the English Civil War. Technically, it was 3 different civil wars fought consecutively across nearly a decade. So it began in 1642, following rising tensions between Charles I and his parliament. Charles I was executed in 1649 after a trial which declared him guilty of high treason as a tyrant and a public enemy. They actually said that. The conflict concluded in 1651, and in 1653, Oliver Cromwell was placed in command of the Commonwealth of England as Lord Protector. So Cromwell died in 1658, and he was buried in Westminster Abbey, and he was given a state funeral that was modelled after James I, who he died previously in 1625. So he was given this grand funeral. He went to the grave well respected and lauded as a hero of England. So if you fast forward 2.5 years later, Charles II has been restored to the throne as part of the aptly named Restoration. And on the 12th anniversary of Charles I's trial and execution as a traitor, they exhumed Oliver Cromwell's body along with 2 others. He was declared a traitor, and he was summarily executed by beheading, and they mounted his head on a spike. So, that's a surprise, I'm sure, to, well, not Oliver Cromwell because he was dead, but, the people who liked Cromwell. Bit of a weird thing, but interesting. Our next one is the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora. I'm running out of time very quickly. It's probably going to be longer than 5 minutes. The event was forecast somewhere in the region of about 3 years prior to the impending eruption. In 1812 on the island of Sumbawa in Indonesia, which was then the Dutch East Indies. Mount Tambora was heard rumbling and began emitting clouds of ash. In 1815, it finally blew its top. Now you might be wondering why I've included an event that was forecast up to 3 years before it happened in a list of historical surprises. And this is because this 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora was the single most powerful eruption in all of recorded human history. So the explosion incinerated all vegetation on the island, and the blast could be heard up to 1,600 miles away. Ash was thrown 26 miles into the air and was reported to have fallen at least 810 miles away in the surrounding regions. The fallout in the atmosphere was that it lowered global temperatures the following year by 0.5 degree Celsius, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 1816 was known as the year without a summer, like globally. Snow fell in New York and Maine in June, and the lower temperatures and ash still present in the atmosphere ruined most agricultural crops in the Northern Hemisphere, causing famine in most of Europe and other countries around the world. It was often considered the greatest famine of the 1800s. So that's a big surprise. We knew about it, but then it was like, oh, it's like the most powerful earthquake in recorded human history. Our last one, you know, it couldn't really be a historical video for me if I didn't talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm going to try and do so quickly because I'm already running over it. This is Discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, I wrote a whole paragraph about their significance. I've told you a lot about this. Maybe I'll do another video about how cool the Dead Sea Scrolls are, but it's the discovery I wanted to talk about here, though. So this was such a chance encounter. These scrolls have been hidden in caves in Qumran, which is in Palestine, Israel area, undisturbed for nearly 2,000 years. So Bedouin shepherds were in the area when they stumbled onto these hidden caves. The story I heard in class was that, which I think it might be apocryphal, was that one of the shepherds was throwing rocks up into the caves and they heard a pot shatter on one. So upon further investigation into what would eventually be called Cave 1, they found a number of scrolls stored in jars. It was some time before the true nature and age of these scrolls was ascertained, but I just love the discovery of that story. It was totally by accident. By total chance, these brilliant shepherds found caves that contained scrolls that no one knew was there. It was a literal lost treasure trove, and it changed the historical and biblical studies scene forever, like totally. So yes, that's number 4. Number 5 is this video. Oh, how lovely. Yeah, I'm sure you didn't see it coming. You absolutely saw it coming. I'm overselling it, obviously, but it's been 2 years since our last video, and I want to get it going again. Let's stick to our sub 5-minute videos. I'm not doing very well to start with. Let's take it in turns to post on Fridays. I already have a whole document filled out for future videos. I feel in such a different place than when we began this channel creatively. I felt flat and stuck, like creatively, when we began. I remember often my videos were like cobbled together the day of filming rather than being a reflection of something interesting I had thought about or learned during the time between videos. I'm a different person than I was 2-3 years ago, and I'm so excited to grow on this adventure with you, Joe. So until next time, my dear friend, I'll see you on Friday.